There is a mountain rising from the heart of the city, a great stone rampart binding the earth to the sky. Upon its skirts, the old border town of El Paso spreads.
When I wake up in the mornings, I have the view of the most beautiful mountains and the sunrise behind it. And it just gives you a wonderful feeling in the morning. It gives you a very great positive outlook in life.
Gisela and Wesley Whittington and their children live at the foot of the mountain. Like many in El Paso, their lives embrace two cultures. Spanish is spoken in the home. English is the language of their dreams.
We have a wonderful family, and we are so blessed to have two beautiful daughters. Brittany, she is just my little ballerina, so prim and proper and beautiful inside and out. And my daughter Alexa, who is a lot like her father, and she is very funny and witty and full of life. I always dreamed of my perfect family being consisting of 3 children, and I already had my 2 beautiful little girls, and all I would ever wish for was a healthy little boy. We were very excited when we found out I was pregnant, and my first thought was to go out and buy blue things and decorate his nursery, and we just looked forward to having a healthy little boy. Wyatt was born October the 25th, 1991, and he was a C-section baby. Beautiful, came out. He looked just like his daddy. He had my mouth, his daddy's eyes, and kind of curly little blonde hair. Plump baby, he looked so healthy. I was lying in my bed, still feeling, of course, the joy of just having a newly born son, when a doctor walked into my room, introduced himself, and told me he was a pediatric cardiologist and that he needed to talk to me about my son, Wyatt. He told me that my son was born with a congenital heart defect called transposition of the great arteries, and that he also had a hole in his heart.
Yeah, obviously we're devastated by the news. You know, this is our 3rd child, and our other 2 children were born relatively in good health.
Well, my first reaction was that he had the wrong room, that was a wrong child, it wasn't mine. I had a perfectly healthy pregnancy, and I thought my son was very healthy. And
the main thing I was concerned about was Gisela at the time, because she was the person that had Wyatt inside of her for 9 months, and she was the person that I was feeling for at the time.
He proceeded to explain my son's condition and told me that he was born a blue baby and that there was a surgery available to fix this type of problem.
To survive, Wyatt required a surgical procedure so advanced, so specialized, it is not available in El Paso. Until a few years ago, it would not have been available at all. But recent medical research, new techniques, and medications provided a glimmer of hope. Wyatt was flown to Dallas. Gisela, still recovering from surgery, was not allowed to travel.
So I had to experience this whole trauma, long distance. And my husband would keep in touch with me through the phone. And I remember one day my daughter telling her teacher that Wyatt, her baby brother Wyatt, was in Dallas so that the doctors could fix his broken heart. It felt so unreal. It felt kind of like to me it was like a nightmare, because I wanted to be next to my son, and I never got a chance to bond with him.
Wyatt came to us as basically a newborn. He was only a few days of age and had a condition that we call detransposition of the great arteries. There are 2 large arteries that come off the heart, the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and in this condition they are transposed or reversed. So the blue blood coming back from the body was going right back to the body. The red blood coming back from the lungs was going right back to the lungs. And we needed to do an operation to reverse that situation. Part of that also involves moving the coronary arteries, which are the very small arteries that feed the heart muscle itself. It's an open heart operation, which requires the use of the heart-lung machine.
The operation begins. Wyatt's tiny heart is slightly larger than a robin's egg. Its arteries so small the surgeons need magnifying lenses to see. Wyatt's little body is cooled until no blood flows to hamper the surgeon's work. The hours creep by.
And what was happening is that the nurse would give me an update, and so she called halfway through the operation and said, I think Wyatt's doing just fine, and we'll be giving you updates. And I said, that'd be great.
He was taken away from me, and in a way I felt like it was someone giving me some type of feeling that I would never see him again, and maybe this is the best way to deal with it, that I was away from him. I did not think he would make it. I really thought that this was a signal someone was sending, that maybe it was better that he was taken away from me and that I was able to deal with this long distance. And maybe the pain wouldn't be as great as if I was there with him.
It, in a way, tears the family apart. The mother has to remain in El Paso, not sure exactly what's happening to her baby. The father comes with the baby to a new city and goes through the emotional roller coaster of excitation and frustration and depression.
Well, I guess 5 hours through the operation, the nurse called and said that the procedure was completed, and she would be back in touch with me once everything was, in line. And then, about an hour later, she said that Wyatt's heartbeat had stopped, and they had to perform CPR, and they had to obviously open up Wyatt again. And at that point in time, I was emotionally spent, and I called Gisela, and that's when I told Gisela that at this point in time, I'd explained the situation, that everything was in God's hands.
After 6 minutes of CPR, Wyatt's condition stabilizes. His heart beats normally. The incision is closed. Yet Wyatt's fight has just begun. Sometimes the Whittingtons cry. More often, they pray.
And I really feel that the power of prayer is so strong, and I really think that was a major part of him getting so well so soon.
And one of the things that was incredible was that I got this sense that there were so many people pulling for Wyatt. I felt it, friends, family, prayer coming from all directions.
And after a couple days of going through this whole ordeal through the telephone, I couldn't stand it anymore, and I called him one day and told him, I have to go see my son. And when I arrived in Dallas, I saw my son for the second time at the neonatal intensive care unit at Children's Hospital in Dallas. And he had IVs sticking out of every part of his body, tubes. He had a halo over his head for oxygen. All I could see were his eyes and the look in his eyes of a fighter, telling me that everything was going to be okay. And I got so much strength from him, and I knew that he was going to fight through this and he was going to get better.
In his room, Wyatt struggles against the mountain chance has placed in his path. But he doesn't climb the mountain alone. Distant strangers, researchers, physicians, scientists, and especially American Heart Association volunteers donate their time and money so that lives like Wyatt's can be saved. All are there by his side, concerned people reaching out to help Wyatt fight his way toward the summit.
He still had an NG tube down his nose, and that's how I was able to feed him, because as a baby he was immediately put on IVs and never learned how to suck on his own. He was on 3 different types of medicines, 2 diuretics, 1 heart medicine, 3 times a day. He still had a lot a lot to overcome. He one day pulled the NG tube out of his nose, and I finally decided that maybe this was his way of telling me I don't like this and I'm going to start eating on my own. So I started feeding him, and little by little he started climbing that mountain on his own. He was drinking 1 ounce more at a time each time and getting stronger.
There is a mountain in El Paso rising in the lives of the people. And at the summit of the mountain, there is a hearty, healthy young boy named Wyatt.
Gisela asked the question, who is responsible for the research that saved our son's life, and the social workers and staff at Children's Hospital said the American Heart Association.
I really believe that all the advancements of medical technology that we have today has helped save my son's life, because every year you hear of more and more advancements, and thanks to the people that get involved with organizations such as American Heart Association, the funds that they are giving to this organization is helping research every day. I think it's so important that people get involved.
There is a mountain rising from the heart of the city. It is a symbol of those mountains that rise in all our lives, mountains we cannot climb alone. It is a symbol of our critical need of one for another. With a little help from friends and strangers, Wyatt has reached the summit. And what can he see from that high place? He can see the city and the desert and the river, but best of all, he can see tomorrow and all the glorious days beyond.